theme song you just heard is Tikkun Olam, which resonates the soul of this broadcast to help repair the world, especially the church and Israel. Just join us now for our time together.
Welcome, everybody, to this issue of Heartbeat for Israel. And today I have with me a very special guest, Sharon Sanders from Jerusalem. And today we're going to talk about a book that she recently wrote called Principle and a Promise. But before we get into the book, Sharon, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'd be happy to, Laura. I was born and raised in the Midwest of the United States. And my husband came from Iowa, so we're definitely from the prairie, as they would say. And in June of 1985, at that point in our lives, the Lord put a strong call on us to be called to Israel. We were graduating from Christ for the Nations at that time in our life, and it was truly the Lord's call. So being born and raised in the prairie, there was something about it because my father was a farmer in Logan County, Illinois. And as I rode my bicycle down the road to watch my father farm, I saw him take the tractor, and before he got a planting and a harvest on some of the richest soil actually in the world is in Logan County, I saw that he had to plow big clods of dirt to get them broken up. And then I watched him the next week, and then he took a harrow, and then he took a disc, and he made the ground softer and softer and softer before he took his planter to plant seeds. And when we came here, the Lord reminded me of that. So that's the basis of our ministry called Christian Friends of Israel, because it started with me watching my father. It's like the human heart. The Jewish heart has been really hardened in many ways toward Christianity. And you have to work that soil and to make it softer and softer before you can really have a relationship with Jewish people today because of the history of Christianity. So what I'm trying to say, it was wonderful, the Lord, to help us to be born on the farm in agricultural territory where we could learn about the soil and apply it to the human heart when we came to Israel. And there's a lot to tell, so that'll be in my next book.
Okay. So you've written a book, Principle and a Promise. Why did you write it? Do you happen to have a copy of it with you that you could hold it up and let us see the cover?
Yeah, here's the cover right here.
There it is. And
a principle and a promise.
Principle and a promise. Why did you write the book?
Why did I write it? Okay, well, I saw a pattern in the Bible. I love the Word of God, as many of us do. And I saw everywhere from Genesis all the way through the Torah and the Tanakh, and all into the writings of the apostles, also known as the New Testament, all the way to Revelation, that the pattern showed us that every time a non-Jew, whether a Christian or not a Christian, blessed the Jewish people, there was a blessing that followed. And so in the book, I try to bring out of every book where I can find, as we walk this path of blessing, because God put the blessing in the first book, Bereshit, Genesis in English. And it was the command to mankind. This is my choice. If you bless my people, you will definitely be blessed. I'm not talking about pink Cadillacs or big cars and prosperity. I'm talking about wellness, whole being of your spirit, knowing that you're doing right what the Bible says. And so I would say this, a principle and a promise makes very clear why the Genesis 12:3 foundational promise of blessing uh, to those who bless Abraham and his descendants was lost by most of the church through the ages, through the 2,000 years of replacement theology, and how its restoration is central to the blessing of individuals, families, churches, and nations. So this book is not only a read to understand the principle of Genesis 12:3, but to learn about the promises of God, which will make a good roadmap for a blessed and a fruitful life.
Can you give me an example of how a non-Jew, an individual from the Old Testament, the Tanakh, um, what blessed a Jew, and how we can see that principle in action? And when you're done sharing that, share an example of a non-Jew from the New Testament where that same principle is at play, is happening, where a non-Jew blesses a Jew, and then we see the blessing that follows. Can you give two examples, one from the old and one from the new?
Okay, well, in the Torah, we are told that when Joseph in Genesis was in the house of Potiphar, it was when Potiphar recognized in Joseph something special, and when he put him in charge of his household, he put him in charge of everything, um, except his wife, of course, which Joseph resisted. But when he put him in charge, he prospered. It wasn't until he put the Jewish person in a place of leadership that he saw the value of blessing the Jew. Now, the principle of our ministry is mercy. And that's what the principle and promise is all about, showing mercy to the Jewish people, because God tells us in the New Testament all about that. In the writings of the apostles, also known as the New Testament, in Matthew chapter 8 and verses 5 to 13, and in Luke 7, 1 to 10. You remember it was the centurions, the Roman centurion, a Gentile, who had a servant who was very ill. And it's amazing to think about, but here is the Jewish religious authorities going to Jesus and asking Jesus, please, please heal him. Because the Roman centurion, Jesus, he built us a synagogue. He blessed our nation. Please heal him. So the Roman centurion gets a blessing back, right? Yeah. And those are a couple examples. But again, we need, as, quote, the church to learn the principle of mercy. It's very clear in Romans. Very clear that if we don't show the mercy of God to his people like he showed us, we could be cut off from the Israel of God in the end.
Yes. I think another example I've heard you share about is about the parable of the sheep and the goats, when at the end of the age, the nations are separated and there's the sheep nations and the goat nations. And that whole separation is based upon this principle that you're talking about. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, we obviously know that when the Lord returns, he's going to set up his kingdom and he's going to be on his throne. At some point in time, when he is in Matthew 25, actually, He'll sit on his throne of glory. And if we remember back in reading about World War II and the Nazis, they had the Jews line up in front of them, and they sent them either to the left or to the right. Well, the road to the left led to the crematoriums and Auschwitz. It's like it's a replay because Jesus, Yeshua, his real name in Hebrew, says he asks the people who are standing in front of him from the nations, maybe they're leaders or kings, or maybe they're the ordinary person on the street. He doesn't tell us, but there will be people who are judged. And he asked them that, well, he basically said in short terms that whatever you did to my people, if you gave them a cup of cold water or you clothed them when they needed help, if you served them or you did something kind to them, and they said, when do we do that? And he said, well, when you did it, it is if as, might as well say, you did it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't help my people, well, you'll be put in the sheep category or the goat category. But if you helped my people and you gave them a cup of cold water and you gave them food when they were starving, or you helped to hide a Jewish person when they needed help, and he said, you'll be a sheep nation or in the sheep
Yes.
nation group.
Yes.
So it very much has to do with the way you treat the Jewish people. It's
Yes.
not a light thing. It's a very serious thing. And
Yes.
nobody talks about it from the pulpits. It's almost as if they shun this great blessing that is waiting for the church to grab a hold of, not forfeit the blessings, but to receive them. And this book tells about it.
So, Sharon, that's a great segue for my next question. Can you share with us how an individual or a church can get more involved with being a blessing to the Jewish people? And why don't you tell us a little more about Christian Friends of Israel? Because that's one
Well,
way.
Christian Friends of Israel, also known as CFI, it's a little bit shorter to say, is a pioneer ministry in Israel today. It was birthed in 1985, and a group of leaders from the United States, England, United States, France, and Australia came together. We just happened to be available and be there at the time, and they chose us to give us the responsibility of raising up a ministry in Jerusalem for the Jewish people. That's the last half of the last century, when prophecy was really beginning to come out and people were beginning to say, yeah, we see the Jews are back home, we see this, and they must, we want a blessing. So they asked us, and they only wanted a 2-room office. So we did that, but it didn't last long. And so we've had 4 or 5 ministry homes because each time we grew out of them because God brought them to Christian Friends of Israel. What do? We have 2 arms. We have 1 arm to the church, 1 arm to Israel. And the arm to Israel is people come and from the nations, and they are volunteers, most of them, and they're dedicated men and women. I think we have about 14 countries on staff right now. And the outreach projects are all built, whether it's to survivors or Ethiopian Jews or to the Russian Jews or to the European Jews, wherever they're from, Africa, China, they during the early days of their um, newcomers, as newcomers to the land, when they have certain things they need and they can't get it, they come to CFI and we're able to help them as newcomers. But we have about 10 to 12 outreaches across the land. Our newest outreach is that professionals are coming from Europe and America, men who or women who are professional interior repair people. And they're called rapid responders, rapid
Mhm.
repairs. And if God forbid we're at war or in the north or the south or wherever it is, and there has been a rocket hit, they're on the road, rolling down the road to go to those homes, to those Jewish people, and they repair the whole thing. It's a gift of love from Christians who love Israel.
Mhm.
There's a tremendous outreach, and it's changed the hearts and the relationships between Jews and Christians.
Mhm.
So this ministry is in the land, boots on the ground. However, we see the need, the desperate need that the church has to return to her foundations or her Hebraic roots. We're not asking anybody to become a Jew or convert to Judaism. No, we're asking them to follow the principle that God gave us to bring a blessing in the name of the Lord. And we can't change the past as far as what happened, but we can repair many things and build for the future. And so we believe this is a time when the Lord wants relationships to be built in order that we might see the
Mhm.
importance of Israel to our faith. Someone once said, if you believe in Jesus, it's our advice, you better, if you're a Christian, find out more about the faith of Jesus.
Mhm.
Well, that's a little bit of the things that we teach, but that's CFI, one to the church and one to Israel.
That's awesome. Can you tell us the website of CFI Jerusalem? So if somebody wants to volunteer or they want to donate to give to be a blessing to Israel, what is the website?
www, sorry, www.cfijerusalem.org. I'll
Okay.
repeat it.
All right.
www.cfijerusalem.org. They can find out about volunteer work and just about any question they've got. There's a category.
Awesome. Can you hold up your book one more time so we can see it? And how can people get the book? Where can we, and I'm going to put a link in the description box below, but maybe you can just tell us, how can people get a hold of this book?
Right. Okay. So I'm sorry, I got it. If you'd like to get the book, it's available on Amazon. You can go right straight to Amazon. They have 30 million books on Amazon, and you'll find that a principle and a promise has risen to as high as 4 million, a favorite book.
Wow.
So get it while you can.
Mhm.
And Barnes and Noble, all the major bookstores seem to be carrying it, and also used bookstores
Mhm.
uh, like World Books and everything. So you can get it. And it's published by Triology, a subsidiary of Trinity Broadcasting. And I just invite you to go and get this copy. And then one man wrote to me and said, I've just ordered 50 books. I want to give them to pastors everywhere.
Wow.
So I encourage you.
Awesome. Thank you. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I would just like to say the greatest blessing, one of the greatest blessings on the path of life is to find this principle. and this promise of God, because the church definitely has forfeited centuries of blessings. And instead, unfortunately, because of replacement theology, which we can talk about sometime, has permeated our churches. So, yeah, I would like to say, if you really want to find a church that I think the Lord would smile down upon, make sure it's a church that doesn't just teach Christian education. We all need more Bible education. And when we
Ah,
get Bible education, then we will find out that one of the greatest principles to walk in the path of blessings from the Lord is to make sure, if we can't do anything else, to pray for the Jewish people, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and love the Jewish people as Yeshua, Jesus, loves his own. I think that'd be the thing I would leave with people. Don't miss this opportunity to find out more.
yes, we definitely need more of an Israel-centric understanding of the Bible. And that's why I'm so thankful that we have a new flagship show on YouTube, Heartbeat for Israel, with you as our teacher, Sharon. That's going to be an awesome program to be listening to. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your time today, Sharon.
Thank you, Laura. It's been an honor to be here. God bless.